All right, Mafatu's mother has just died, and he is stranded alone on the little islet. He's only 3 years old. Sometimes now, in the hush of night, when the moon was full and its light lay in silver bands across the pandanus mats, and all the village was sleeping, Mafatu awoke and sat upright. The sea muttered its eternal threat to the reef. The sea, and a terrible trembling seized the boy's limbs, while a cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Mafatu seemed to see again the faces of the fishermen who had found the dead mother and her whimpering child. These pictures still colored his dreams. And so it was that he shuddered when the mighty seas, gathering far out, hurled themselves at the barrier reef of Hikaru, and the whole island quivered under the assault. Perhaps that was the beginning of it. Mafatu, the boy who had been christened Stoutheart by his proud father, was afraid of the sea. What manner of fisherman would he grow up to be? How would he ever lead the men in battle against warriors of other islands? Mafatu's father heard the whispers, and the man grew silent and grim. The older people were not unkind to the boy, for they believed that it was all the fault of the Tupapai, the ghost spirit, which possesses every child at birth. But the girls laughed at him, and the boys failed to include him in their games. And the voice of the reef seemed pitched for his ears alone. It seemed to say, "You cheated me once, Mafatu, but someday I will claim you." Mafatu's stepmother knew small sympathy for him, and his stepbrothers treated him with open scorn. "Listen," they would mock, "Moana the sea god thunders on the reef. He is angry with us all because Mafatu is afraid." The boy learned to turn these jibes aside, but his father's silence shamed him. He tried with all his might to overcome his terror of the sea. Sometimes, steeling himself against it, he went with Tavananui and his stepbrothers out beyond the reef to fish. Out there, where the glassy swells of the ocean lifted and dropped the small canoe, pictures crowded into the boy's mind, setting his scalp a tingle. Pictures of himself, a babe clinging to his mother's back, sharks cruising. And so overcome would he be at the remembrance of that time that he would drop his spear overboard or let the line go slack at the wrong moment and lose the fish. It was obvious to everyone that Mafatu was useless upon the sea. He would never earn his proper place in the tribe. Stoutheart, how bitter the name must taste upon his father's lips. So, finally, he was not allowed to fare forth with the fishermen. He brought ill luck. He had to stay at home, making spears and nets, twisting coir, the husk of the coconut, into stout shark line for the other boys to use. He became very skillful at these pursuits, but he hated them. His heart was like a stone in his breast. A nondescript yellow dog named Yuri was Mafatu's inseparable companion. Yuri, with his thin coat which showed his ribs, and his eyes so puzzled and true, he followed the boy wherever he went. Their only other friend was Kiwi, an albatross. The boy had once found the bird on his lonely wanderings. One of Kiwi's feet was smaller than the other, perhaps because it was different from its kind. The older birds were heckling and pestering the fledgling. Something about that small bird trying to fight off its more powerful fellows touched the boy's heart. He picked it up and carried it home, caught fish for it in the shallows of the lagoon. The bird followed Mafatu and Yuri about, limping on its one good leg. At length, the young albatross learned to fly. It began to find its own food. In the air, it achieved perfection, floating serenely against the sky, while Mafatu followed its effortless flight with envious eyes. If only he too could escape to some world far removed from Hikaru.